social impact designer. And basically no one knows what that is, but that is someone who looks at complex social issues and uses a methodology called design thinking to address those issues. It's kind of like design with ethics, for lack of better words. So Baltimore is kind of like a social designer's playground of sorts. Historically, the disenfranchisement of people, mostly Black people, lends its hand for Baltimore being a great place to use intentional design to address some of the social ills that are prevalent as a result of the historical disenfranchisement, the social and political craziness that exists in the city. So as a social impact designer, we're mostly looking at stuff like housing issues, stuff that really impacts the quality of life for people day to day. Yeah, so design kind of has a broad scope. Design can be anything, which is the reason why our job is kind of, it's not for the faint of heart, because you can literally apply design to almost any and everything. So for me, I am a graphic designer by trade. I've been designing for almost 12 years at this point. So I use design and visual communications as my means of design for the most part. That mostly lends itself to finding different solutions to communicate effectively for people who don't normally have access to resources and opportunities. It lends its hand to allowing people to portray and define themselves as they desire. So most of my work I do for small Black businesses, Black entrepreneurs, people who are trying to develop economic wealth for them and their families, and also gives them some sort of autonomy and some sort of ownership in a world that wasn't designed for them. I got my start at Temple University. I went to Temple University for undergraduate, one of the greatest schools ever, in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. And so I started as a business major. I was an international business major, and the School of Business was very staunch, it was just very gray, black and white. There was no color, there was no life. It was very numbers oriented. So about my third year, I switched my major to strategic and organizational communications to add more of a human element. And I didn't really know what I was doing at the time, but what it was lending itself to allow me to use both sides of my brain, both more so the creative, more communicative style, people-oriented, and with more of a business-savvy strategy side. And then from there, I actually got my start working for the progressive NAACP, Temple University's chapter. And so it was a really interesting start. I came in as the marketing director, had no idea what design was or even how to use it really, but I started developing a really good eye for design, figuring out ways to best portray Black people. What messaging, what colors, what styles resonated with people and invoked them to act. And so that's where I got my start. I got my start designing for Black people in a Black context. And so I kind of continued that throughout college and then also into my career. I've never had a formal education in design ever. I picked up Photoshop at the time, I think it was CS2, which is showing my age. So picked up Photoshop and just kind of had my hand at it. So that passion actually sent me running. I decided to quit design several times. I quit almost every week. There seems to be a really high demand for someone who understands people of color, mostly Black and brown people. And so I graduated from college. I ran away to Nicaragua, where I lived for a year, and a week there, I actually moved there with $300 in my pocket, no job, no place to live. And I was at a bar one night in Nicaragua dancing bachata and merengue, and some guy came up to me, some expat from the Netherlands. He's like, "Oh, what do you do?" And I'm like, "Well, I do design." He's like, "Oh, we need you. We're hiring a creative director at this nonprofit school." And so literally about 3 days later, I became the creative director of a local nonprofit in Granada, Nicaragua, where I served as kind of what I didn't know at the time, but a social impact designer. The school I was working for coupled as a Spanish language school for rich white Europeans, and then the money that was taken for the education for the Spanish classes for expats was then used to serve underserved youth in Nicaragua. So Casa Altava was kind of like my launching pad into this space of kind of nonprofits, using kind of the wealth of one people to give it to the underserved people, kind of like a modern day Robin Hood of design, which is what I like to look at myself as. So I lived in the Spanish language school where I worked, which is also kind of a big part of a social impact designer's practice. It's really building relationship with the people who you are designing for to come up with communal solutions for the issues that need to be addressed. So those who are most impacted by the problems that someone wishes to address, those then are the people who are the ones who get to address the problem in short. And we as designers just get to facilitate that process. So for me, it was really learning the people, learning what they love, learning how both sides, both the people who were coming to learn Spanish and the people who were actually living in Granada, Nicaragua every single day, who had their families and who needed to provide and having a decent quality of life. So it was really interesting to see that dichotomy that existed between those two worlds and using design to bring those worlds together. So some of the design solutions that came about from that project were, of course, a website, typical stuff, regular visual communication design, branding materials, completely did a whole revamp of the entire school, in which they were able to establish and maintain that brand authenticity and integrity to this day. So it's been beautiful to see them get shirts created and see their brand all across the country of Nicaragua in different ways. It's been beautiful. Almost 8 years later.
My name's Mark, I'm an alcoholic.
Dorothy T., and I am an alcoholic.
For so long, alcohol has sort of been there for me to sort of see me through social situations.
Drinking was more important than anything else. My journey in AA started years ago when I reached the outside limits of my desperation. I really wanted to quit drinking, I just couldn't stop on my own. And you know, I remember when I woke up on the day that I got sober, I felt something inside of me tell me that I could go to AA.
These people, you know, just gathered around me. That was the fellowship in action in my life.
The moral of my story today is that AA has never let me down, ever.
If I carry any sort of message with my story, it's that, you know, keep coming back and that this thing does work.
If you have a problem with alcohol, contact AA. It works.
How do you change history? You can change history by walking and marching. You can change history by speaking and teaching. You can change history by taking a stand or taking a seat. But the best way to change history is when you becomes we. We tore down that wall. We marched for equality. We made sure that love knew no boundaries. Now you can become we right here in Vancouver. We can end HIV. We can change history. It begins with a test. Testing today can range from a blood test that'll inform you in about a week to some locations where a prick of the finger gets you a result in 60 seconds. Diagnosing HIV early changes everything. It prevents the virus from attacking your body, and it prevents it from spreading through our communities. All each of us has to do is step up and take a test. Changing history is that simple. Testing centers are available throughout the city, or just ask your doctor at your next regular visit. And if your doctor offers a test, say yes. It's just the responsible thing to do. Then, share the word. Tell people that HIV treatment has changed. Tell people that testing has advanced. Tell people that the entire approach to HIV is different now. Let them know that by choosing to take a test, we can all end HIV. This is a fact. We are so close. But to become we've got to have you. We need you to do your part. We need you to share the word, take the test, join the movement. End HIV. Change history. Learn more at itsdifferentnow.org.
So the doc gave you prescription meds. Use them as directed and you're good to go. Misuse them and things can go south, fast. It's easier than you think to cross the line. Maybe you take a few extra pills, thinking you'll get your boots on the ground faster. Or mix meds with alcohol, or use a leftover prescription, or share meds with a buddy. And misuse can quickly turn into abuse when you take meds just to get high. Random drug tests don't lie. If you pop hot, you could be looking at a discharge, loss of benefits, and worse. There's a lot to lose when you misuse. So take your prescription drugs responsibly. It's a thin line between use, misuse, and abuse. Don't cross it. Learn more at armythinline.org.
So one day my mama called me and said, Sally Mae keeps calling me. So I had to come back. I had to pay my student loans. Temple University is, at the time, it was, I think, number 9 on Forbes list. So the business school was top ranked, and so they wanted top dollar for your education. So I had to come back to pay my student loans, and I moved back to North Carolina where my dad was planting a church at the time. And I moved back to help them. And to get my life together. I really didn't want to move back. I just loved being a gypsy artist, kind of carousing, but Yvette had other plans. So from there, I really didn't want to take design seriously anymore. I really wanted to just kind of exist. I think we find with most artists that we find it difficult to exist in society, especially when you come from contexts like Baltimore, where it's like, well, this space isn't for me, and I don't belong here. These people don't want to see me succeed. Or even when you have your family who hold you to higher expectations, it's really difficult trying to navigate those things. So when I moved to North Carolina, I did something really stupid, and I fell in love with my then ex-fiance and got caught up in a lifestyle that was not how I was raised or even what I thought should be done at the time. So we were gallivanting through the city doing what Bonnie and Clyde does, and I grew tired of embarrassing my family. I remember one day sitting, we were in a restaurant, we were visiting my mom's family in Colorado, and the news came on and it said that, employment for Black people, Black Americans is at an all-time high. And my brother was just kind of saying, it's like, well, those who don't want to find jobs, they're just lazy and they don't know what to, they're just lazy. And my mom's like, well, if it's that easy, then help your sister find a job. And so, I kind of, but the whole time I had applied to over about 500 different jobs all across the United States, even in Nicaragua. I was like, I want to go back. I just need to find a job that's going to pay me enough to pay my student loans. And so it was kind of weird because I did everything to avoid coming back to Baltimore. I didn't apply to any jobs in Baltimore. I was like, I just want to stay away from Baltimore. And then my brother said something that really struck a chord with me. He said, well, if she wanted to find a job, she would find a job and stop selling crack all day. So I left the table, and after I called my ex-fiance at the time, my fiance at the time, I came back and I came and I saw my brother crying. And I had never seen my brother cry like that. And I grew tired of embarrassing my family. I went back to the hotel room and I searched for business and design or something to that effect. And immediately the Center for Social Design at Maryland Institute College of Art popped up. And I was like, okay, wow, this is great. I don't have to take the GRE, which I never understood anyway. It's like, I have 2 degrees. Why do I have to prove to you that I can take a master level course? So I took the GRE. I'm sorry, let me pause. So I at that very moment, I applied to MICA. And not knowing that I got in or anything, I applied, and maybe 2 or 3 weeks later, I moved back to Baltimore into our family house with my brother and 5 other men, which is exciting. And then I really started praying towards it. I was like, well, Lord, I'm here. I would really like to go to grad school. And then a couple months later, I got my acceptance letter, and then I became the program assistant of my program. And so that's how I ended up at MICA, and it was a roller coaster ride.
stupid or something?
I can't do this anymore. I can't do us.
I don't know what's wrong with you.
I'm just not feeling well.
You are dealing with pain, anger, a heaviness. It feels like there is no way out. It seems like you are in this by yourself, battling alone. But you are part of one Army family, shoulder to shoulder with a community there to get you through these hard times. There is no shame, no guilt in seeking out help. So if you are struggling, feeling depressed, or even having thoughts of suicide, it is time to talk to someone. Your Army family is committed to finding you the strength and hope you need to rebound from adversity. Because, above all else, our most essential resource is you.
Good morning. Hey, Ricky. Yeah. I like Ricky. Oh, what's up, man? Good morning. Good morning. Good night.
Hey, I just want to let you know that Ricky took his life last night.
No 2 days are alike. So every day, you prepare. For yourself, for those you love, for whatever the day may bring. Being prepared is a part of who you are. But in the case of a disaster, preparation isn't always front of mind. In an emergency, when help and resources may not be available for days, being prepared is more important than ever. It's up to everyone to be informed about what types of emergencies might occur where you live or visit. Knowing the best responses for your personal circumstances is the key to maintaining your health, safety, and independence. Make a plan that covers where you'll go in an emergency and how a personal support network can assist you. Build a kit that contains the specific things you need to survive for several days: food and water, medication and supplies, as well as any important documents you may need. Being prepared is a part of who you are, and disaster preparation is no different. There's no one more capable of planning for your situation than you. Be informed, make a plan, build a kit, get involved. ready.gov/myplan.
So I believe the Center for Social Design was founded from a good heart space. I believe that when Mike Weichert and Lee Davis created this program, that their desire was to see equitable work being done. Baltimore has a long history of larger institutions like MICA, like Hopkins, like University of Maryland, coming in, zapping the community of resources, and then leaving it devoid, and then sometimes throwing nickels and pennies back at it. But I think the heart behind the Center for Social Design was to see people from the community actually having a voice and input in what they saw their realities becoming in front of them. I also think it may have been a little bit of white guilt. You know, you come, you work in a large institution like MICA, you see and pass by Black and brown folk every single day, and you realize that your worlds never collide even though you walk the same streets. I believe that the Center for Social Design is a good start. It's a good conversation starter. I wish that MICA would use a lot of the methodology and the things that the Center of Social Design has developed over the years and implemented across the board as students learn and even take from the city, take from our culture. I think it's kind of a conundrum because my experience with MICA, I went to that school for a summer program when I was about 8 or 9. It was like a painting course I was taking. And so I never saw myself as a part of MICA. It was kind of like a place to escape to, which is weird because you live right down the street from it. You would think that, you know, you all share the same space, you're part of the same community, but no. So to answer the question, what were they thinking? I think they were thinking what anyone else is thinking. They wanted to do good work. So social design is weird because you think you're coming into a program with people who are designers, but in fact, most of the people in my program were not actually designers at all. They were people with psych backgrounds in psychology, and they had backgrounds in business, and they just came from a variety of different fields. So, which made me have to change my way that I view design. What is design? What shapes does it take? And what ways in the world do I see design taking form that are not practical design? I actually was one of only 2 graphic designers in my entire cohort. So you have to rethink of what design is, and then you have to rethink of, okay, what are the implications of my design? What are the lasting impacts of my design? And so my family, though they have a rich history here in the city, they did a really good job of kind of shielding me of a lot of the realities and a lot of the ills that plague Baltimore. So when I came into the Center for Social Design, I learned about the history of redlining, that Baltimore is the core of where that entire system started, that the reason why my trash didn't get picked up for 2-3 weeks at a time was intentional, that my family and friends didn't have access to resources and opportunities intentionally. And so it caused me to grow a little bit cold. And I grew angry at the fact that I was a part of an institution that somehow actually perpetuated a lot of the stuff that I was seeing. And so from that point on, I kind of made it a point. Anytime I could, I would make space for my family and friends to come into MICA. When you see a whole bunch of people from West and East Baltimore in a prestigious white institution, people are kind of like, well, what is this? And so I made it a point, is if you're gonna be in our space, this is gonna be our space. So MICA made me realize the reality that Black Baltimore and white Baltimore were very different places. Right, so we do this thing that's called root cause analysis. And so we usually take an issue, and for me it was seeing the disenfranchisement of Black folk in Baltimore, the heavy use of drugs, the high incarceration rates, and it really caused me to look into the history, and it caused me to see that I couldn't do much with just my rinky-dink communication design. I mean, of course, yes, but it would have to have been under the umbrella of something, of an agenda that was going to actually push things forward. And so if you look at the history of Baltimore, you realize that a lot of the ills that exist are legal issues. They're laws that have been placed to actually institutionalize the separation of access to resources and opportunities for people of color. So I decided to put a lot of my efforts into looking into the legal roots. Okay, what were people doing who were in and of the community, who actually knew the laws of the land, for lack of better words? And so that pushed me into the space of grassroots activism. People who were actually going in, lobbying, who were taking a critical eye at the laws that were being passed, that were actually suggesting new laws to be passed. And so from that point, it was, I know nothing about law. I am, however, willing to learn and serve wherever I can serve. And it was very abundantly clear that there was a need for technical design in these spaces to amplify the voices of those who were already kind of had their foot in, but actually weren't being heard because they lacked the credibility. And so a lot of times that's what design does. It actually adds to your value. It can create value. And so that's why you see some people and designers, we charge $10,000 for a logo, because we know of the value that it's going to bring you in your organization, your company. So I connected with several organizations, one of which, Leaders of a Beautiful Struggle, kind of became my main hub of which I did my practice and developed my thesis and my work around. And they were pushing for the same things that when I got down to the root cause of what was going on, it was a lack of power, the lack of autonomy, and the lack the lack of the ability for Black people to determine their own destinies. And it sounds real radical and real Black traditional, but it was exactly what was needed from my vantage point at the time. It was exactly what was needed. And so that's how I started getting to the political sphere of things and kind of got my foot wet in there.
So while you were at MICA, there was another thing you did in Europe. Could you describe it? I forgot all the details of that.
Yeah.
But talk about that time.
Yeah. So after MICA, after I got arrested and protested and graduated at the top of my class, I guess they felt bad. I was able to continue with my social design career, and I was awarded the R.W. Deutsch Fellowship. And so basically they allowed me to continue my practice. And so I connected with my colleague and actually my uncle, Robert Ingram, and we were able to develop this forum called the Gender Economic Forum, where we were looking at gender parity, the level of disparities between the pay rate between men and women, basically. And so I was able to use, my design background, my business strategy background, and we came up with this forum and we launched it in London. And the reason why we launched it in London is because that's where a lot of the conversation for gender parity was actually started, maybe about 40, 50 years ago. So we launched there, connected with some people at some universities and the United Nations. We had some partners there. And we were able to have this conference in London. So we were able to bring the Gender Economic Forum back to Baltimore, Maryland, our hometown, and got to partner with Ciroc and the Maryland Institute College of Art, of course, and some other really cool brands that are cutting edge.
How do you change history? You can change history by walking and marching. You can change history by speaking and teaching. You can change history by taking a stand or taking a seat. But the best way to change history is when you becomes we. We tore down that wall. We marched for equality. We made sure that love knew no boundaries. Now you can become we right here in Vancouver. We can end HIV. We can change history. It begins with a test. Testing today can range from a blood test that'll inform you in about a week to some locations where a prick of the finger gets you a result in 60 seconds. Diagnosing HIV early changes everything. It prevents the virus from attacking your body, and it prevents it from spreading through our communities. All each of us has to do is step up and take a test. Changing history is that simple. Testing centers are available throughout the city, or just ask your doctor at your next regular visit. And if your doctor offers a test, say yes. It's just the responsible thing to do. Then, share the word. Tell people that HIV treatment has changed. Tell people that testing has advanced. Tell people that the entire approach to HIV is different now. Let them know that by choosing to take a test, we can all end HIV. This is a fact. We are so close. But to become we've got to have you. We need you to do your part. We need you to share the word, take the test, join the movement. End HIV. Change history. Learn more at itsdifferentnow.org.
We're always ready for action.
We can do it in 2 minutes.
Now, when I was in high school, I couldn't do it in 2 minutes. By the time I got to college, 2 minutes was a cinch.
I really like it when a guy can do it in under 2 minutes.
The key to my marriage is doing it in under 2 minutes.
I can do it in 2 minutes.
I can do it in less than 2 minutes.
I can do it in under 2 minutes myself, and with my boyfriend.
Each year, the Red Cross responds to 66,000 disasters.
Most of them are home fires.
Most of them are home fires.
Ooh.
I know. Whoa.
7 people die each day on average from home fires.
7 people a day.
That's way too many people.
You can save your life and your family's life.
Make an escape plan.
Make an escape plan.
Make an escape plan.
It's critical that everyone can get out in under 2 minutes.
I can get from my bedroom to my front door in less than 2 minutes.
In 2 minutes.
I can take my shirt off, pour glitter all over myself, and still do it in 2 minutes.
Called my mom the other day, told her I did it in under 2 minutes. She was so proud.
1.5.
What? There's no way.
Yeah.
Check your smoke alarms monthly to make sure they're working properly.
Smoke alarms cut your risk of death or injury in half.
Half? It's 50%.
This little guy, cutting it in half.
And if it's beeping at you, don't rip it out of the wall. Give it a battery, you know? Make it happy so it can help you get out of the house in time.
Make sure to visit redcross.org/2steps, 2 minutes.
2 steps.
2 minutes.
2 steps, 2 minutes.
Visit the link below to find out more.
Wherever it is.
Not there. Here.
So on page 124, you guys can find some practice questions, and I do suggest that you all take a look at these because this test next week is going to be a doozy. We will definitely be solving for x, so x squared plus 3 equals. Marshall, would you come up here and solve this problem for the class?
I can't.
And why is that?
Because I have a boner.
Oh.
I have a boner.
Okay.
I have a boner.
I have a boner.
I have a boner. I have a boner. I have a boner. I have a boner.
I have a boner. All right, no, boys. Come on, sit down. Class is not. Sit down. Well then, Megan, do you want to come up to the board and solve the problem? I have my period.
I have my period. I have my period.
Answer is 7.
I have my period.
I didn't want to talk about it earlier. Why would I want to seem like this sad sack? Those are all the lies that I told myself. It's like, oh, if I talk about this, even professionally with my job, if I talk about this, people won't want to watch me. It's not important enough. And even now, as I'm hearing myself saying all those things, like, wow, man, I really wish that I would have spoken out earlier, because there's nothing like being able to shine a light on those secrets. Those secrets kill. The secret of keeping all that to yourself and putting on that mask that'll eat away at you daily. It ate away at me daily. It's difficult for men in general, I think, because of just the way that we're raised. You feel any of the negative emotions or that dark cloud settle on you, and you feel like you need to cry out or speak to someone about it, no, I'm not gonna do that because I'm a man. What kind of man would I sound like if I told somebody, hey, I'm so sad. I'm cripplingly sad. I can't get out of bed. I feel empty. Help me. Psst, I would be some sissy. I'd be soft. That's what you're taught. That's what you were programmed. And that's what kills us. So in speaking about it on ET and being honest, folks have come out of the woodwork. People that I haven't heard from in years, complete strangers, a ton of mostly on Twitter and on Facebook and social media. That's been an amazing gauge of all the love, and so many people, it's echoed the exact same sentiment. Thank you so much for speaking, because I felt that I couldn't.
So some aspects of Baltimore that actually have changed as a result of the work that I've done. I've been fortunate to work with the Baltimore Health Department on several projects, one being mother-to-child transmissions of HIV and AIDS. So they came to us and told us, we want you all to help us bring the number of mother-to-child transmissions of HIV AIDS down to 0. So we're immediately like, what? How do you even do that? So this was about a 5-year project that we worked on. And so we intimately got to know mothers who were living with HIV and AIDS. We got to know the children who were affected by mothers who lived with HIV. So it's beautiful to see. And the design solution that came out of that, we were able to create a resource guide for these mothers that's now all across the state of Maryland at different hospitals and facilities that moms can have access to. So things like clothing and shelter and food and stuff that you don't think exacerbates the issues that come with living with HIV or even being a mom in general. We were able to develop a solution for just moms in Baltimore who just struggle on a day-to-day. It's hard. It's hard getting from point A to point, and little stuff that we found, like getting to a doctor's appointment. So it's not like I really want to continue to pass on this disease to my child. It's like, no, I literally don't have any way to get to my doctor's appointment, to get my medication, to do this. And we found that a very small population of mothers living with HIV and AIDS have problems with addiction, and they are those moms who, for lack of better words, live under the bridge, who we wouldn't have access to. For that very small population, I think we were able to do a good job in even reaching them. So there's hope. I think the work that we do allows the voices of those who normally aren't heard to get voices and to get solutions to some of their most pressing issues. I see that there are very little tangible human solutions to the human condition. So I'm at a point now where I am developing a love and affection, not just for God, but for the people that bear His image. And so a lot of the issues that I think plague Baltimore, I think it comes from a lack of understanding of who God is, and then who we are in light of who God is. So what I'm doing now is I love the work that I do because I get to serve my church, I get to serve the people of God, I get to serve people who I come in contact with on a day-to-day basis. And that's basically using design to get them on a curb to understand who they are in light of who God is. And so sometimes it looks like a branding project. It's like, in what ways can we communicate your value as an image bearer to the masses. And so I most people don't know that's what I'm doing when I'm doing my design work, that I'm thinking holistically about the stuff that I'm putting out. I think it's a privilege to serve in that capacity, to have divine purpose over just a more human-centered purpose. So I don't know. If I could, I would impact the spaces in which people don't normally see. The spaces in which the power really lies. So apparently I like legacy organizations. I got my start with the NAACP. I still do projects for the NAACP currently. Which later now I'm working for Child Evangelism Fellowship, which is also a legacy organization that's been around for about 80 years. So I spend a lot of my time bridging a lot of gaps between the haves and the have-nots, or people's target audiences that they don't naturally have communication with. So example, at Child Evangelism Fellowship, a big crux of my work is connecting CEF to a millennial population who far reach. So the whole entire goal of CEF is to evangelize boys and girls with the gospel. And so what that looks like is going into public schools, setting up what we call Good News Clubs, which is an after-school program, 90 minutes. And we basically collaborate with the schools and the teachers to put on this programming for the children. So most of the children's parents are actually my age, which is kind of scary, but because I don't got no kids, but most of them are my age. And so I think CEF is at a pivotal point in which most businesses are, if they're legacy organizations, if they don't tap into this new generation of folk who are always connected to their devices, always connected to something or someone, they lose out. So people are still fighting to find value, to find out what value they offer people. And so that's basically still what I do. I build bridges, I connect people to opportunities and resources, just in a different way. So social design, I'd like to tell people it's not really a thing. It's simply being human. And I think a lot of times older folk are stuck in their ways of thinking in which they lack a kind of human, empathetic value, where they just think things should be done a certain way because that's how they've always been done. Whereas people in my generation are more like, how do I feel about this? In what ways can we make this better? Why do we do it this way? So what we find is there's a constant give and take, which is what social design is. It's a give and take from these people who are being impacted by the problem, and coming together to find a solution. I will say this, that the technology gap is causing there to be a lot of different hiccups, but it's been encouraging to develop relationships with people who are not like myself. And in the field of social design, that's always what we're doing. It's kind of like we're creative ethnographic researchers with a creative twist. And so we're constantly put in spaces where we're not the expert. And that's the key. We're not the expert, but we can go in with a clean slate, with a clear eye, with an understanding with how things should work from a more human-centered standpoint, and then offer up solutions. So it's been interesting. You know, older people, they like their stuff the way they like their stuff. They're not trying to learn new technology. And we younger folk want someone that's actually going to listen, someone that's actually going to reciprocate love and empathy and affection. So we're finding that the old way of doing stuff, kind of by the book business, you know, all the numbers and is really not what's being propagated today in the world of Instagram, where we're constantly trying to stop the scroll. It's like, what visceral reactions can we play on in order to garner the affections and garner the attention of people that we want to come in contact with every day? And so that's basically what I do. And I think it's more of a science. So social design is not really a practice, it's a science. And I think you learn that by just constantly being human, being constantly put into situations where you're forced to look outside of yourself, put yourself in someone else's shoes, and for lack of better words, try to become them, to to come up with a viable solution. So I spend a lot of my time doing that, connecting bridges, figuring out solutions to problems. And I love not being an expert on things, but it proves itself to be always challenging. No day is the same. I believe that my time in Baltimore has taught me that life could be very simple. It could be very simple. It's people who have access to power that make it complicated. And not wanting to share that power is what makes things complicated. So one thing I've learned is that corruption, I feel, is a choice. Like, we're at a point now where it's like, okay, we've gone through this year, and I think the number is 767 murders, 343 murders.
Still a lot.
700, right.
Well, 760 something like actual incidents.
Yeah, so we see the just the depletion of our population in terms of the homeless population, in terms of people who are addicted to substances. I have never in my life seen so many people just addicted. There's a lot of hurt. So Baltimore has taught me that there's a lot of hurt. One thing I will say, that being in and from Baltimore, is that there's also a lot of pride. We do take a lot of pride in our city. We take a lot of pride in the stuff that we do and we put out. Baltimore has humbled me. It's made me a lot more proud of where I come from, seeing that I do come from good stock, that this is a city that's rich in history, that's wealthy in resources, even though a small portion of people kind of hone in on it. I believe that Baltimore could change, because it's definitely changed me. I don't mind living here anymore. So as someone who I describe myself as a modern day Jonah, perpetually running away from wherever I'm supposed to be, always, all the time. Baltimore is the place where you have to get comfortable with being uncomfortable, in every essence of the word. So, and it's brought out the best parts of me as a designer, as a human, as a daughter, as a sister, as a friend. It's made me who I am. I'm proud.
I can't do this anymore. I can't do us.
No, what's wrong with you?
It's not anymore.
You are dealing with pain, anger, a heaviness. It feels like there is no way out. It seems like you are in this by yourself, battling alone. But you are part of one Army family, shoulder to shoulder with a community there to get you through these hard times. There is no shame, no guilt in seeking out help. So if you are struggling, feeling depressed, or even having thoughts of suicide, it is time to talk to someone. Your Army family is committed to finding you the strength and hope you need to rebound from adversity. Because, above all else, our most essential resource is you.
I was addicted to heroin for years. When people tried to talk to me about my addiction, I didn't understand a word they were saying because I didn't believe that I was addicted to the point that I couldn't rise above that condition. But when I started really understanding the sickness of this addiction and started getting deeper and deeper into myself to find a way out, I found that key to open the cuff that had me locked down inside of my own creation.
It took me to places where I thought that I really didn't want to, I never would dream of going. I dropped out of college. I did not complete. I did 2 years, and after that, my addiction took off. I came back to Baltimore, and when I came back to Baltimore, it was a drug called Ready Rock, crack cocaine.
I started using heroin when I was 15 years old. That escalated to crack cocaine, smoking crack cocaine. As a result of my drug addiction, I've been shot on 4 several occasions. I got shot my first time when I was 15. I got shot 1 time. Then when I was 16, I got shot 3 times. Then I was 23, I got shot 1 more time. And when I was 24, I got shot 9 times at 1 time, which resulted in me having a colostomy bag for 6 years, broke 2 of my ribs, collapsed my lung. Right? I've had my throat cut with straight razors from here to here as a result of buying drugs with somebody on. Then when I ran out of money, I decided I was going to go into them and take it. I got my throat cut right on Mountain Landville. I've been stabbed 20 times in prison behind a drug tree with an ice pick.
We had babies. I have 3 now. And following my second cesarean section, I was prescribed Percocets. And I started taking them, and then when I ran out, I was busy. He had 3 sons. We had 2 daughters together at the time. And I was basically too, quote unquote, busy to go and get my script refilled or even consult my doctor again. I just started taking his pills because they were in the cabinet. And so I was taking his medicine, and he was taking his medicine because he was in pain management. He was taking methadone and Percocet pills. So when we ran out of them, we started buying them off the street. We made good money, but not good enough to support 5 children and 2 people in active addiction.
I went to Vietnam in 1969 after my brother rotated, and that's when the marijuana got heavy and more drinking got heavy. And then being in combat, I suffer now from post-traumatic stress disorder from combat. And that's when I started really dipping and dabbing with heroin. So I went to prison in 71. I got out in 76. And that's when the using began. And I started using heroin.
I stayed clean 8 months and relapsed. So in 2012, when I tried to come back, it was 30 days waiting list. Wow. Right? So then in 2013, when I came back again, it was 45 days waiting list.
There needs to be more facilities, more places that it's readily available where a person can walk in and say, please help me, I'm sick and tired, whatever, I need help, I'm an addict, I just don't want to do it anymore, because You know, most of us get to that point. Some aren't so fortunate, you know, to make that decision. And a lot of times, people who don't get a chance to walk in and get a bed may have to go back out there or make the decision to go back out there, and then there's not a chance.
We should be able to come off the street. We should be able to have a bed available to us immediately, because I was getting ready to go back on the street until they had allowed me to come in this program, because there's not a lot of programs like this.
They would literally just take me in right now, whether I'm clothed or not clothed, and say, come on, this is where we're gonna put you. This is what you're gonna start doing. We're gonna get you here, we're gonna get you there, we're gonna get you the help that you want, that you need to make yourself a better person, to give you better peace of mind, to help you go forward.
No one has phones, so you call the places, oh, give me your number, Miss Polly, I'll call you. But no, you can't call me back. And I'll be lucky if I can find a phone to call you back. When I'd need to use a phone on the street in Southwest, I would go through easy 10, 15 people before anyone would let me use their phone, and then they held on to me so I wouldn't go away with their phone. So, I mean, having treatment that's tangible for addicts, especially when they're at the worst spots of their life, I think that's incredibly important.
If it was available to people to be able to walk in and just say, I need the help, and there's a bed turnaround, you know, that day, or even if they say, well, we can facilitate you for that night and keep you safe, you know, and we'll put you in somewhere tomorrow morning, you know, even something like that would be better than what the you know, how it works now.
First, they need accessibility. It shouldn't be, you know, come call me 2 weeks, 3 weeks later. Put them in the most needed areas.
When they had that moment of clarity and they could step in somewhere and say, look, can you help me? I'm just tired. I need some help. And at that moment, direct them to where they needed to go. It will make a difference.
I have been offered so much crack, so many drinks. Just the other day, somebody offered me a drink. Hey, Diane, I'm turned it down every time. And it was once upon a time I loved the drink and my crack, but I was strong enough to say no.
It's about attraction. So the more people that staying clean, the attraction is going to influence people to want to stop themselves, because it's always as bad as he was or she was. If they can do it, I know I can